So, good day everyone, I'm Carlos Chen Kamanging and I am your reporter. So, but before we start our topic, I have one question. So, kasi yung nakita sa screen or kasi yung nakita sa screen. So, anyone, sige mag-volunteer. So, how about you, sir? That's correct. How about you, ma'am? That's correct. So, all of your answer are correct. So, based on the screen is kana sila is nanay mga special needs or special education nga kailangan na to alagaan, i-care as a teacher. So let's proceed our topic for this morning. So our topic for this morning is all about what is inclusive education. So inclusive education, in addition, inclusive education is carried out in a common learning environment that is an educational setting where students from different backgrounds and with different abilities learn together in an inclusive environment. So meaning, gibo ni siya para sa students with different disabilities daw kay maka-learn together even though they're different in the same learning environment. So as a teacher, we need to treat the students fairly. So next is inclusive education is essential to achieve social equity and it's a constituent element of lifelong learning. So it also to prove or to show social equity or kanang fairly so ang student. So next is a common learning environment is a not place where students with intellectual disabilities or other special needs learn in isolation from their peers. So meaning, dili ginapasabot na sila sa isa ka school na naay kapansanan or na disabilities is wala na sila karapatan muskwela. Remember, we as a student, we need to learn and interact to other people. Learning new things give us or boost our confidence. If we learn, we gain knowledge and ideas. So next is inclusive education is intended to create a learning environment in a different school that is center of learning and educational system as a caring, nurturing, and supportive educational communities where the needs of all students are met in accordance with their needs. So meaning, nahimo ko ni siya para mag-centralize o teaching system as caring, nurturing, and supportive educational communities or i-focus diri to meet the students' needs. Also, as a teacher is that we should take care of our student and guide. And being a teacher of special education is not easy and it could be challenging.
Good day everyone, I am Herling Joy Asruelan, the second reporter of Group 1. So I will discuss to you the benefits of inclusive school communities. As stated by Al-Shamari, Faulkner, and Forley in 2019, effective inclusive education practices should incorporate ideas from different theories so that teachers can successfully make curricular and instructional decisions for each student. This means that we need to incorporate from different theories so that teachers will be able to fit a curricular or instructional decisions for their student because there is not only one disability in the world. So, we need to be careful giving a student an activity kasi if it isn't fit sa kanyang disability, baka magka-complicate or masaktan ang student. According to Erkmer and UB 2013, as cited in Al-Shamari, Faulkner, and Forley in 2019, behaviorism-based inclusive education practices include the application of behaviorism in inclusive education settings, which clearly appears in the emphasis on students' behavior and performance and manipulating stimulus materials. So examples of behaviorism-based inclusive education practices are include in a well-known instructional approaches such as explicit or direct instruction. So practices based on explicit or direct instruction are systematic, involving a step-by-step process provided by the teacher and followed by student during instruction. In addition, explicit or direct instruction-based practices that break down tasks into their smallest elements are widely used for teaching students with special educational needs in inclusive education classroom. According to Piaget, cognitivism focuses on the attributes of one's thinking, memory, self-reflection, and motivation to teach. Cognitivism-based inclusive education practices are implemented by applying different instructional approaches focused on learning activities such as note-taking by Boyle and Rivera 2012, underlining Swanson, Orozco, and Lucier 2014, summarizing Ritrak and Alessandrini 1990, writing to learn, outlining and mapping, and use of PQ4R method by Slavin 2009. So what is PQ4R method? PQ4R method stands for review, question, read, reflect, recite, and review. PQ4R method is one of the effective method reading skill. So this method can help the teacher in teaching learning process, and it can help the students to understand of the text so that they can explore their knowledge. So lastly, in the same study by Alshamari Faulkner and Ferdin 2019, constructivism-based inclusive education practices are the application of constructivism in inclusive education settings, which would involve instructional methods and strategies to assist learners to explore complex topics actively. Constructivism-based inclusive education practices emphasize making learning more meaningful and using real-life experiences. So for example, teaching children to add by using comparison about buying apples in the market. According to Steele 2005, another example of constructivism-based inclusive education practice is active learning. Steele suggested that practices such as teaching students to summarize, paraphrase, predict, and use visual images help students with learning disability understand and remember. To TIES, or Increasing Time Instructional Effectiveness, Engagement, and State Support Center, 2018. Enumerated different benefits of inclusive education. The first one is support to civil rights. Teachers believe that inclusion is a civil right. Like all students, those with disabilities have the right to attend regular schools and general education classes. I agree with the teachers because we all deserve na maka-learn, maka-experience og activities, maka-gain og knowledge or challenges sa world even if you have disabilities or not. Number 2, integration in community life. As special education, students need to belong in a certain group of people. Dapat kasi yung mga nakakasama nila sa classroom is katulad nila para di sila maka-feel of indifference and they won't be bullied or discriminated, and also for them to have a healthy environment and to not feel any anxiety with the people around them. Third, sense of belongingness and acceptance of differences. An inclusive approach to education challenge practices of separating students and their underlying assumptions. As educators become more successful implementing inclusive practices, fewer students are at risk for experiencing segregation and its potentially devastating effects on learning. It's because this helps them to never think that they can't do anything. With the help of teachers who is working hard to find a fitting task for them, they will be able to think that I can enjoy and I will do this again. And it's good also to give them positive comments para ma-feel nila na belong sila. Number 4, varied learning opportunities. Like other students, children should also enjoy varied learning opportunities that hit their learning needs. It's because all children should grow encountering varied opportunities and challenges. This means na dapat po hindi magbalik-balik ang mga activities and lesson para mas mawiden pa ang learning ng child. Number 5, use of best practices in instructions. Teachers are trained with varied strategies, modalities, and individualized instruction approaches. The children should have the best teachers with experience. Kasi if may experience na ang teacher, they will have their own strategy on how to communicate with their student properly. So that student will be able to feel that they are safe to their teacher, and if the teacher are open to them, So they will be also open to their teachers. Number 6, individualized education in a supportive context. The teachers are well trained in IEP making, the natural flow of productive interaction and learning in general education environments makes them ideal place in which to expect active students' participation and high levels of students' accountability for their performance. TIES 2018. Students with disabilities can practice skills in this supportive learning context, even though specific goals and objectives aligned to the grade level content may vary greatly among students. Relationship with peers. Inclusive learning environments provide opportunities for all children, teachers, parents, community, and other stakeholders to have a very smooth relationship for the improvement of teaching practices so that students won't be shy on talking to others and they will be open to them, especially with their parents and guardians. They will be able to communicate properly. Number 8, increase instructional support for all students. Inclusion benefits the students because when students with disabilities are educated in general education classes, special educators, and specialized instructional supports in those settings, this results in general education teachers and students having additional expertise more available. TIES 2018. For example, additional personnel can result in smaller instructional groups during language arts and math, which allows more frequent and individualized interaction between teachers and students. In addition, general educators have often remarked that their instructional repertoire has expanded as a result of team teaching with special educators. In this way, special educators and general educators support each other in meeting the educational needs of all children. 9. Improving schools through team building. Team effort and collaboration of all students is essential in an inclusive learning environment. Teamwork not only results in improved instruction for students, it also brings about increased spirit de corps and support among a critical mass of educators in a school building. Positive working relationships and a sense of shared responsibility for students are now recognized as cornerstones of successful school-wide improvement efforts. Relationships established among staff involved in creating inclusive learning experiences can support such initiative, resulting in increased learning for students throughout a school. 10. Parental involvement. The parents are greatly involved in all students' activities. Parents' conferences are regularly conducted. When children is blah blah blah. Parental involvement. The parents are greatly involved in all students' activities. Parents' conferences are regularly conducted. When children with disabilities are included in their local schools, their parents can participate to a greater extent in that school and in the community where the school is located. Parents of included students can be a part of a support network of parents of their children with disabilities, as well as parents of children without disabilities. Such support is more difficult to access when a child's school is a long distance from home or when families do not feel welcome.
Good day everyone, I am Venica Misi Uganap and today we will be discussing about diversity of learners. So before we proceed to our discussion, let me present to you our objectives for today's topic. So our objectives are, first, describe the various last issues related to diversity of learners. And the second one is utilize variety of classroom instructional strategies to address the need of the diverse learners in the classroom. So that's our objectives. So diversity according to the dictionary, it is the practice or quality of including or involving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and of different genders, sexual orientation, and etc. And aside from that, diversity according to the dictionary, it is the state of being diverse or variety. So, let's proceed first for our first discussion about Loden's diversity wheel. So, Loden's diversity wheel. So, understanding diversity begins with oneself. Okay, am I right? Understanding begin with oneself. So in simple terms, diversity means recognizing differences and understanding that each individual is unique. So respecting each other and knowing how we are similar and different will help us to develop better human relations. So we are similar and different in so many ways. So let alone in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, world views, political affiliation, educational attainment, career, physical abilities, value-based, family history, and many more. So what's this Loden's diversity wheel? So Loden's first piece of advice to people using the model is to open up diversity conversation. Okay, so that everyone at the table can identify with some dimensions. So the goal for an organization is to create an environment where, regardless of one's diversity profile, so everyone feels welcome and where everyone's skills are leveraged. So by means, okay, with this model, if you can see in the illustration, the Loden's diversity wheel, by means of the model, we can explore differences but also similarities from multiple perspectives. So get hold of our own assumptions and behavioral patterns. So let's explain further what are these 4 layers. So if you can see at the illustration, there are 4 layers. So personality is the inner layer, and the second layer is the internal dimensions, the third layer is the external, and the fourth layer is the organizational dimensions. So if you can see the personality, it is the inner core or the first layer. So what is this? So it shows how a person interacts with others and what his or her characteristics are. So whether he is an introvert, introvert, or extrovert, active or passive, a fast and dynamic doer, or a silent doer, and reflective thinker. So it is how all these aspects together affect the way the person is treated by others. Okay, so that is the personality or the first layer. So let's proceed to the second layer or the internal dimension. So are based on 6 aspects that an individual possibly cannot choose or control him or herself. For example, they are age, gender, sexual orientation, physical ability, ethnicity, and race. So these aspects influence how the person, okay, is treated when she or he is dealing with diversity in communication and interaction with others. So again, when we say internal dimensions, it is largely out of our control. No, it is largely out of control. We can control it. Okay, if you can still remember the examples are age, gender, sexual orientation, or physical ability. So internal dimension, it is the core of a person that ito talaga tayo, no, nasa kalooban natin. Okay, for example, age. Okay, there's a lot of people that they want to be young, forever young, so that they take a lot of medicines, no, in order for them to stop, in order for them not to be old. But then we can't deny the fact that all of us will undergo this. All of us will be grow old. So that is the internal dimensions. It is largely out of our control. Okay. So the third layer is external dimension. So depict the outcomes of life experiences and decisions or choices taken. Okay, altogether there are 10 different areas such as the education, work experience, income, marital status, parental status, and so on and so forth. So through which people can be appreciated or degraded and connected or disconnected depending on how exactly these aspects are seen and applied. So external dimension, it is the opposite of internal. So in external dimension, it is largely within our control or choices. So we have control, but it depends on our choices. So example, the income, can control it, so choices, and marital status, parental status, or experience. Okay, let's me cite some example. So appearance. So there's a lot of people, for example, Filipino. They have this misconception about, okay, example, so appearance. No, they find this mga pango, no, not attractive or not pretty. So they go on undergo surgery, no, so that their nose will be pointed, no, matangos yung ilong. But then they undergo the surgery, no, physical changes, the appearance sa ilang face. So external dimension, it's within our control. So there are changes. Okay, it depends on our choices. So the last dimension is the organizational dimension, or the fourth layer. So include elements that are integrated into work and social interaction in an organization at a workplace. So they contains a number of hierarchical as well as functional aspects of working life and how a person relates to them in the context of diversity. Okay, so that is the four layers of diversity. So let's proceed. We have this primary and secondary characteristic of diversity. So when we say primary, such as age, race, gender, ethnicity, mental and physical abilities, and so sexual orientation. So the most visible one, or the core. So this is the core because they exert an important impact on early socialization and a powerful sustained impact through every state of life. So when we say primary characteristic, it is largely out of our control. Okay. Secondary characteristic is this dimension contain an element of control or choice, such as nationality, education, income, religion, work experience, language skills, geographic location, family status, communication style, military experience, learning style, economic background, and work style. So secondary characteristic is opposite to primary. So when we say secondary characteristic, it is largely within our control. Okay, so let's proceed. Lode 1991 mentioned that in order to understand better these dimensions, an individual must have respect, inclusion, cooperation, and responsibility, which is very true. So diversity includes therefore knowing how to relate to those qualities and conditions that are different from our own and outside the groups to which we belong, yet are present in other individuals and groups. So finally, we acknowledge that categories of difference are not always fixed but also can be fluid. Okay, we respect individual rights to self-identification, and we recognize that no one culture is intrinsically superior to another. So we need to understand the different perspective of individual even if they belong in the same race, gender, and more. So again, even if we belong in the same race, gender, so on and so forth, still we have different perspectives that need to be respected. Okay? For example, even they are disabled, it doesn't mean that they can't do something. They can use what capabilities they have. But the truth is they are more than what we are expected, because we are unique. We can go or jump to any conclusion, no? For example, like this, wrong conceptions. If you are disabled, you can do anything, which is wrong. Each of us are unique. Even though you are disabled, non-disabled, all of us are unique. So respect, inclusion, cooperation, and responsibility is a must. So each person, no, is a priceless and worthy of respect, even though they look differently. So don't crumple and bully others. Respect and uplift. So thank you. I hope you learned a lot to our discussion today.
Hello everyone, good day. I am Jubito Kyle H. Plaza, the next reporter, and today we will be discussing about ability and disability as dimension of diversity. People with special needs are considered as nation's largest minority, where some people treat them differently. The concept of diversity encompasses acceptance, collaboration, as respect. People with special needs vary in race, gender, educational background, socioeconomic status, organizational lines, and even global understanding. This can be understood that each individual is unique and recognize or develop the individual difference. When we say people with special needs, it is common that they are treated differently, right? So, the concept of diversity encompasses acceptance, collaboration, and respect. We need to accept collaboration and respect them, as doesn't mean that they are disabled, they can use what capabilities they have, but they are more that can be accepted. This can be understood that each individual is unique and organizing the individual difference. It is exploration of this different safe, positive, and nurturing environment. It is about understanding each other and moving beyond simple tolerance to embracing the celebrating the rich and dimension of diversity contained each individual. But then the disability of individual hinders them to employ. Here are some factors that help to perpetuate the high unemployment rates of persons with disabilities and from cultural diverse background, or let's say there are limited attention given to people with disabilities as the world's largest minority group. People with disabilities from culturally diverse background experience twice the discrimination experienced by non-disabled people is minority community, both disabled and race complicate and the situation. When we say minority group, it often occurs within the discourse of civil rights and collective rights, as members of minority groups are prone to differential treatment in the countries and societies in which they live. Minority group members often face discrimination in multiple areas of social life, including housing, employment, healthcare, and education, among others. There is a disparity in rehabilitation service provided to minority persons with disabilities. Aside from that, public health issues that most racial ethnic minorities face, minorities with disabilities experience additional disparities in health, prejudice, discrimination, economic barriers, and difficulties accessing care as a result of their disability. In effect, they face adult burden. Number 3. education opportunities are less available and affordable to individuals with disabilities from culturally diverse background. Not all disabled can be educational opportunities. For example, income status of the child's family. We can consider that also to reduce economic and social inequalities. Students, regardless of income status, must have equal opportunities to benefit from education. If general education systems are not sufficiently prepared to meet the needs for students from low-income families, and as a result, students are getting inappropriately identified and then placed in substantially separate classroom as highly rates. These students are not be afforded an equal opportunity. Policymakers, educators should act on this recommendation to better inform and improve opportunities for students from low-income family. 4. Inadequate transportation and housing in disadvantaged communities intensify the employment barriers for minority people with disabilities. Transportation is an extremely important policy issue for those with disabilities. People with disabilities and have constantly described how transportation barriers affect their lives in important ways. Number 5. There is a lack of mentors of role model for minority individuals with disabilities in the workplace. 6. Mainstream job coaching and mentoring on job training and internship are readily available to minority individuals with disabilities. Number 7. Both mainstream and minority communities and religious organizations tend to overlook their capability to support the employment of minority individuals with disabilities. Number 8. Cultural differences are not clearly understood by individual or organization designing programs to support the employment of minority persons with disabilities. There's still people that don't understand the individual disabled person needs to support their employment due to cultural difference. Host says that important to remember the cultural dimension don't exist in real life. They are only way to understanding a very complex world. They are a framework for making sense of difference we can use as long as they are practically meaningful. As such, the dimension help us to understand that what happens in one particular culture does not necessarily happen in another. Also remember that this theory is about cultural groups and not individuals who can vary widely from each other despite sharing a culture. That's all about the ability and disability of dimension diversity.
Good morning everyone, I am Animalo Alcamentres, and for today I'm gonna discuss the techniques, strategies, and tools for diverse learner. So according to Cole 2008, he mentioned that teachers promote critical thinking when they make the rules of the classroom culture explicit and enable students to compare and contrast them with another culture. Simply means that teacher needs to promote a classroom rule that is clear to everyone for be able to the student to compare and contrast the culture that they have to the culture of others. There are some activities and tips for diverse learner. First, write the question on the board or flip chair and read it aloud. Allow the student an adequate amount of time to think of their answer. Sa number 1 is gonna be itong mga flashcards na ginagamit sa mga teachers. For example, math flashcards. Di ba mana na ang teacher na? Okay, I'm gonna show you the questions, tapos I'll give you 10 seconds to answer. Pero gamit ang flashcards. One of the examples. Second, write several questions on individual piece of paper and distribute among the students. So, ang pangkaduha is kanagong ang teacher magsulat siya og mga questions, tapos ibutang niya sa piece of of paper din ihatag niya randomly sa mga third. Write several questions on a sheet of paper and distribute among students. Vary the difficulty of the question. Ask the student to select one of the questions to answer and then provide time for them to formulate a response. So sa pangatlo is same nga gihapon, ang teacher ang maghimo og questions, ibutang sa piece of paper, but ang estudyante ang mag-pick kung unsa nga questions ang iyahang mabunot, and then tagaan siya time to respond. 4. Ask students to come up with their own questions based on the content and topic. Have them write their top 3 questions. So, sa number 4 naman is, ang teacher mag-ask siya sa student to formulate a 3 question regarding sa topic. Sulod atong tulo ka questions, magtubag siya og isa. So, there are some activities and tips for the reverse learner. First is, teacher have a clear sense of their own ethnic and cultural identities. So, dapat ang teacher aware sila sa ilahang own ethnic and cultural activities. Second, teachers communicate high expectation for the success of all students and believe that all students can succeed. So, ang teacher na asiyay high expectation sa iyang kaugalingon o sa iyang estudyante kaya nag-believe siya na ang iyang estudyante is mag-succeed. Third, teachers are personally committed to achieving equity for all students and believe that they are capable of making a difference on their students' learning. So, ang number 4 is, ang teacher is personally committed siya na ang students daw na-ay ma-achieve because na-believe siya na ang mga students is capable of making a difference. So 4, teachers have developed a bond with their students and seeing student as the other. So, di ba there are some teachers na kanang na ay teachers nga dili na to ma-feel nga teacher sila. It is because of the bond na ilagi napakita sa to everyday. So inana po ang mga teachers na ibang teachers nga estudyante dili niya maano as estudyante lang. It is because sa bonding nga iyahang napakita everyday. 5. School provides academically challenging curriculum that includes attention to the development of higher level cognitive skill. So, ang number 5 is kanang while nagkataas ang atong grade level, ang lesson nagkalisod. Muna siya, it helps para ma-develop ang cognitive skills. 6. Instruction focuses on students' creation of meaning about content in an interactive and collaborative learning environment. 7. Teachers help students see learning tasks as a meaningful. So 8. Curricula include the contribution perspective of the different ethnocultural group that compose the society. Curriculum daw kay nag-contribute siya sa different perspective sa ethnocultural group na compose sa isa ka society. Teacher provides scaffolding that links the academically challenging curriculum to the cultural resources that students bring to school. So, ang teacher is naghatag siya og scaffolding or nagtabang siya na mag-provide or mag-develop og new skills sa isa ka bata academically. Teachers explicitly teach students the culture of the school and seek to maintain students' sense of ethnocultural pride and identity. So, ang teacher is ginatudloan niya ang students sa culture ana ang eskwelahan para ma-maintain sa student ang ihang sense sa ethnocultural o pride and identity. 11. Community members and parents or guardians are encouraged to become involved in students' educational and are given a significant voice in making important to school decision related to program. So, ang community members daw, ang parents o ang guardians is gina-encourage sa school na mag-involve sa isa ka student in terms sa education. Tapos sila significant voice na importante sa school
decision-related program. Teachers are involved in political struggles outside the classroom that are aimed at achieving a more and just humane society. So, ang teachers na po siya yung mga struggles na gina-face sa gawas sa iyang classroom. So became the reason nga nung mag-aim siya na maka-achieve og just o peaceful na society.
Thank you everyone. I hope you learned a lot today about diversity of learners. Thank you and keep safe.